Today I'm going to talk about an external SSD enclosure. And the reason is I got a lot of replies from my Ivanki M4 Mac Mini video. And I just wanted to share to you that I use external SSDs connected to my Ivanki or to the Mac Mini. And one in particular is really, really fast. And it's connected directly to my Mac Mini Pro, which has the Thunderbolt 5 connectors. Now, the Thunderbolt 5 shouldn't have a lot of difference on a Thunderbolt 4 SSD enclosure because it can't go any faster than Thunderbolt 4, right? It's not going to automatically jump up to Thunderbolt 5. And it didn't. But I just wanted to share with you what I'm using, because maybe you want this similar performance, and I'll tell you exactly what I'm using. I'm using a QuizLab, and it's a fanless SSD enclosure, USB 4, and it does 40 gigabit. And it's interesting that when I connected it up through to Thunderbolt 4 or 5 on the new Mac Mini Pro, it actually sped up. Now, it wasn't slow before. I was getting like 3,100 read and write, which is like, yeah, really nice. But now it's even faster. So I think it's because the Thunderbolt 5 spec or something related to that is much more efficient. So it uses less processing and overhead and everything else that is involved in transferring data between the two devices. Now it still has to adhere to Thunderbolt 4 because the enclosure can't do any better than that. It's a Thunderbolt 4. So how could it speed up? It has to be the overhead. In Thunderbolt 4, probably there's a lot more overhead in that device interface, which uses up some of those bits, which reduces its transfer speed. On Thunderbolt 5, it's probably faster, more efficient. So if it isn't a spec of the Thunderbolt 4, that efficiency reduces the amount of overhead and it can actually transfer faster. I'll show you the difference between this same drive and the same SSD connected to the Ivanki through the 40 gigabit port, not the 10. And when it's connected to a regular Thunderbolt 4, like I had on the regular Mac Mini 4 Mac Mini, and now to the Mac Mini Pro Thunderbolt 5. And I tell you, if you want a drive that's almost as fast as the internal drive, and I'll show you the speeds. Get this. I mean, I added 2 terabytes of speed in an external enclosure that's not Thunderbolt 5. And it's almost as fast as the internal drive. So this may be something people are interested in. So I'll get into the differences. And I'll show you the graphs from that I did from the speed tests. It's actually interesting because with the same drive, same cable too, not even changing cable, just plugging it into different devices, right? It shows you that a lot of the speed limitations are not the SSD, are not the little enclosure, although it is. I mean, it's Thunderbolt 4 enclosure. It can't go faster than that. But on Thunderbolt 5, with the reduced overhead and everything associated with Thunderbolt 5, it actually is faster. So I'm getting more speed just from the Mac Mini Pro Thunderbolt 5. Nothing else changed. And I think you'll be surprised. So first, let's look at the internal SSD for the Mac Mini 4 Pro. Base model, 12 CPU, 512 gig. Now, it makes 4156 write and 5092 read. That's a pretty damn fast SSD. And I can tell you that when I had the original one I ordered, the base model with 512, it wasn't this fast. So that means you're getting a faster SSD on the Pro than on the base model or the M4 base CPU. And I can't tell you whether it's the channel speed or other improvements inside that made the difference. Maybe it's the same SSD, who knows? Maybe it's just faster because it's on the Pro, because of the internal speed ups. I don't know. But I can know that it's faster than the regular M4 Mac Mini. Then let's look at the same drive hooked up to the Ivanki Max 1 dock. And this is always very disappointing to me. It's supposed to have those 40 GB, ports. And I hook it up to that. And yeah, the same drive, same SSD, same cable. I'm getting 2,152 write and 2,778 read. Same drive, same enclosure, same cable, same everything. So I don't know what the issue there is, because I mean, it's connected through Thunderbolt 4, and the Ivanki says it has 2 Thunderbolt 4 chips built into it. So I don't know why is it slower than connecting directly to the device through Thunderbolt 4, like on the original Mac Mini. But it is. It's slower. Now, when I connect this directly to the M4 Mac Pro, Thunderbolt 5, same device, same SSD, same cable, but to the Thunderbolt 5 ports. Now, I'm getting 3,479 write, 3,422 write or read. So it's basically 34. So that's a huge improvement, because when I connect it directly to the Mac Mini 4 on Thunderbolt 4, I was only getting around 3,000 read and write, right? It's just, basically 3,000, both read and write. And now with the Thunderbolt 5 on the Mac Mini Pro, it's 3479 and 3422. So there must be a reduction in overhead, because it can't run at a Thunderbolt 5. It has to still be Thunderbolt 4. So that means there is some processes that are happening inside that are not connected to the cable, the enclosure, or the SSD. It's all happening in the Mac Mini that is speeding up its ability to transfer back and forth on Thunderbolt 4. And I'll bet you the Thunderbolt 5 is much more efficient at transferring data than Thunderbolt 4 was. And I tried using a Thunderbolt 5 cable. Like, ooh, maybe this will really speed it up. No, it had zero difference. So if you want to get a Thunderbolt 5 cable, do it. Spend the money. You're future proof if you want to buy a enclosure for Thunderbolt 5 in the future. But right now, just with what they ship you, right, and with the enclosure, you're not going to see a difference. And I'm not even using it. I tried it to see if it made a difference, but it didn't. So I'm not even using it. I'm just using the cable that they sent with the enclosure. But I wanted to let you guys know, because if you're like me, I don't need it. I mean, seriously, I don't need this kind of stuff. I'm not working for Disney or Pixar, and rendering stuff. This is just my hobby. And if you're like me, I want to get the most for my money. And if I bought an enclosure and an SSD, and I'll tell you which ones they are, and I get a boost in performance, right? Just from connecting it to a new Mac. That's money in the bank, right? I don't have to buy a new enclosure, a cable, or anything else. I'm just getting free speed. And so let me talk about what I actually have in this enclosure. It's a QuizLab, QUIIZLA lab, right? You can find it on Amazon. Fanless. There's no fan. They even ship you some heat sink tape to put on your SSD, which is nice. It's very efficient. It has a little light on it, right? So you can see when it's working and when it's not. The light changes. If you have a white light, it knows it's only at 10 gigabit. If you have a yellow, or a green light, then it's at the full 40. So that's a nice thing too. If I connect it up to the hub and all of a sudden, oop, I got a white light. No, that's not working right. Right? And it runs pretty cool. I use a very hot SSD. Hot. Because these faster SSDs, they use a lot of power and they produce a lot of heat. You can get slower SSDs if you don't need it, right? They'll produce less heat, use less power. But, like I said, I'm just a hobbyist. I just love having fast stuff. So I'm using a Western Digital 850X, 2 terabyte. Now they make it 1, 2, and 4. Maybe they even have an 8. I don't know. But I'm using the 2 terabyte and connected it directly to the Mac Mini Pro, Thunderbolt 5. You saw the numbers I'm getting. So it's like, wow, that's almost as fast as the internal SSD. I'm actually thinking that maybe next year, when I start running out of room, I'll just increase it to the 4 terabyte. I don't know. Maybe by then they'll have the 950X or something. Who knows? But that's not bad. That's really, really good speed. Now, I do want to caution, do not move the OS to the external. You'll mess up your Apple Intelligence, and who knows, there may be other things that get messed up. You can, however, move like applications off to the SSD instead of the internal. You can do that by going into your account with the App Store, and you can tell it where to install the applications, and it will do that when you download them. That's an option. Especially for people who buy the base model 256. You don't have a lot of room there. But don't move the OS off to the SSD. It's going to be a lot of problems. You're going to have issues. And, well, hell, if your SSD fails, You lose your OS and all your data and everything that's on that drive. It's not a good option. It's better to have the internal SSD holding the OS. Use iCloud backup to, or backup either to iCloud or to an SSD. Because, well, if my Mac Mini fails, right, I have to send it back to Apple. Like maybe they replace the SSD or send me a new one, right? Well, I can restore it off of the SSD backup and I'm golden, right? I'm back to operating. So I've seen videos where guys try to sell you the base model with 256 and then, oh, you know, buy this SSD is really, really cheap compared to Apple upgrade. And move your OS and everything off to the, don't do that. Do not do that. You can move files, which is what we always do. And you can move some applications off, right? And run them off the SSD. Now, I wouldn't see a difference because when you saw the numbers, this is almost as fast as the internal SSD. In fact, it's actually faster than the 256 SSD in the base model M4 Mac Mini. So, yeah, I wouldn't know the difference. But that's just a warning. I see a lot of these videos where it's like, yeah, $5.99 or $4.99 education model, you know, buy this external SSD, put everything on it, and you'll save money. Probably not. You're probably going to lose data. That much I can say. But saving money? Probably not. So, anyway, I'm going long, and so I hope this helps somebody. I heard from a lot of people that watched my last SSD and Ivanki video that they got something from it. So I hope you get something from this because, you know, I make mistakes. I buy shit, I have to return it, and, you know, it's a back and forth game, but it's my hobby. And I don't want people to suffer through the same things that I already found out, right? So you'll see in the video there, you know, the items that I'm using. If you want to replicate it, just buy the same things. It'll work.